This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
enough. You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for. What happens to pedals once they've been demoed? This video I kind of wanted to describe as I see it some of the kind of problems that I have with pedal demos and gear demos and some of this stuff in general, because I think actually this stuff deserves more than just one video in most cases, but in a lot of cases that's kind of all you might get, because you know, companies send these pieces of gear out to people, and that's kind of the way that people like me make some of their living, or some people might make more of their living. The problem as I see it is that these things like that might even have come out at NAMM, you get a big splurge of interest, and then suddenly we're now like, what, May? And it's like, is anyone really talking about any of this stuff anymore? I don't know. So yes, I was just thinking, you know, what's happened between NAMM and now. So there was the MXR Rockman that I think is still, there's a long wait list potentially. I think I saw somewhere there's like a wait up till about December on some of the stuff. So these are things which, like the MXR Rockman, there was a huge surge of demand and more than MXR expected, and just a huge, like, well, this really is capturing the imagination of the audience. I think they could have sold thousands and thousands and thousands of them if they had them ready to go. There's a long queue of people wanting that piece of gear. But the thing is that I don't think there will be, by the time those MXR Rockman orders have been fulfilled or potentially fulfilled, I don't think there's going to be the kind of interest that there was around launch time. And this is the kind of boom and bust sort of thing of pedal demoing, where you saw, like with the MXR Rockman, like Leon Todd, Pete Thorne and RJ Onkilo did videos, and like there was huge interest at the time, and you think, right, wow. And then after that, like the interest just trails off quite quickly, to the point where I don't really see people talking about that pedal even like now, just a few months after. And likewise with the Super Lead 1959, I don't see people talking about this either. And now this was just £119. I bought this one. I bought two of them because I was like, if I can get my hands on these, that'll be interesting. This is a really sort of quality metal chassis, feels like well made, made in Vietnam. Not the softest pedal switch in the world, but sounded pretty good playing with it, and it was quite an interesting pedal. But again, you know, you're probably not going to see many people talking about this now that launch is done. The budget for this is kind of just gone, so the people that would be promoting these now that they might start to become more available will be promoting other stuff, and it's kind of I think a little bit of a shame. Likewise, this is a pedal that I was involved in the launch of. Much better soft twitching. This is the Royal Flush from VS Audio. Now Panos sent me an email, was like, do you want to check this out? And I just kind of, I loved it in the demo, then it goes on the shelf, and then I got it back out again to make this video because I was like, well, what did that sound like again? And just super impressed. It's two blues breakers, sort of like the King of Tone without the waitlist type deal. And then you think, right, okay, well that's out. And then just a couple of months later, Chase Bliss bring out the Analog Man, King of Tone, Brothers, AM thing. It's just like, right, well that's another pedal in exactly a similar vein. Of course, the Chase Bliss stuff comes in slightly more limited runs and commands a bit of a higher price in general. So, you know, if you're looking to get something similar to that in terms of tone, then possibly the Royal Flush might be a good bet. But again, it's just one of those things where it's like, well, now that that is talked about, there will be like a peak of interest, and then after that, you're just basically relying on either people that are going to make videos for free on this stuff. So I guess like this one would be, because this isn't a sponsored video by VS Audio at this point, it's just me kind of talking about a thing, or word of mouth. If enough people try the pedal and start writing about it on forums and stuff like that, which I guess is quite a strong thing. But I really would encourage you guys, I guess, to comment on these sorts of things if you really like these, because that will help these pedal manufacturers, I guess, right? Then, you know, you think of something like the Kernom Ridge, which actually, for the amount that this can do, I don't think we necessarily talk about it enough. It came out with the Paul Davids kind of launch, and after that they've done, this is just a really small company as well, by the way, Kernom Ridge. This is the Ridge, they're called Kernom. But I think it was 4 people when I spoke to them, something like bonkers small like that. And I just don't know that these guys have the budget to sort of help get the word out about these things and keep the interest of people. So I guess this is something that someone like Neural DSP do quite well, because they've managed to, you know, have quite a good marketing budget, but also once something's launched, they'll keep coming back and doing their own content on it, and maybe they'll get someone like Jack Gardner and people like that to feature playing with the products, which I think helps to keep products in the mind of folks when they're looking and you're thinking, right, okay, now it's payday, what shall I grab? Was there something I think this is probably how it works for some of us, right, where it's like, right, I was thinking I could grab that pedal, is it in stock anywhere is kind of the main thing, because if it's not in stock, then you might have to just go on eBay and see if someone's scalping it and selling it for way more than they paid, or do you just buy something else? And like I said, this pedal here can do basically some of those similar things to the Chase Bliss Brothers AM. So if this is available somewhere and the Chase Bliss just isn't, you end up buying something like that instead. And I guess this is really the other key problem with gear demos, is that most of the time I'm not going to be comparing pedals, and that is, I think, where you can get some useful stuff out of a YouTube video in general, and it tends to be like the non-sponsored stuff where it's like maybe guys with smaller channels, or just guys that are really nerdy with it and want to compare two pedals like I do sometimes, where it's like, well, if I had a Chase Bliss Brothers AM and this in hand, I could do a video comparing them and you'd be able to see, oh, well, those do sound similar or they don't. But if you're just looking at like different demos from totally different pedal demo folks, then you're going to be getting a totally different idea of what they might sound like. And it might sound like the Chase Bliss Brothers might sound like incredible in one video, and then this other video that you're watching is just like someone playing like a totally different rig that doesn't sound like anything that you would want, or into a different amp. Like this same pedal, like two blues breakers, can sound quite different in front of a deluxe reverb versus the demo that I did on the intro here, where I was using it into Scuffham S Gear. And then that's like the other thing I wanted to talk about here, was like there are really decent pieces of like digital gear, like Scuffham S Gear, the plugin, which really doesn't get talked about too much at all, because they just don't seem to be in the game of like spending money on marketing in this kind of way. But actually when I plugged it in, turned it on and played through it, just like, wow, do I really need like another neural DSP plugin or whatever? Just this Scuffham S Gear just sounds really good, is really good. So it's just another one of those things where like there might be some brands that are just not really playing this game of like getting demos done on YouTube and stuff like that, and as a result it just relies on word of mouth, in which case I feel like some of you guys might be missing out on some of this gear like I was, until you guys told me to check out Scuffham S Gear like a few years ago. And then just because there's this bias towards newer stuff because that's where the money is, doesn't mean that this gear becomes obsolete. Obviously, you know, these things need to be played and stuck on a pedal board and played for a longer period of time for you to get more out of them. I think that is one of the things that, in general, a YouTube gear demo or even a written demo doesn't really get across, and that's something that we're kind of missing out on, I think. Like a longer term review. That's one of the things that I really like about like the Helix or the HX Stomp or Fractal, is that because there's these stream of updates and Neural DSP as well, it gives people like me something to talk about, so that there is a reason to talk about that piece of gear, so that people that have invested in it kind of are still getting more for their money. And I think that works kind of for the manufacturer as well as the customer in most cases. Anyway, that's just something I felt like I wanted to talk about and maybe highlight some of these bits of gear again. And let me know in the comments if you've tried any of these or any other pedals that you think don't get enough love. I'd love to have an email from some of you guys if there are some things that you think, actually, you really need to check this thing out, you haven't checked it out. I get people asking about like Vailton modelers or Valiton, however you pronounce it, and it's just the case that I can't demo everything. Or do I even want to? I think there's this idea that maybe it might be worth trying to focus, like I have done, on HX Stomp or Fractal FM9 or whatever, and try and get a little bit more juice out of that rather than just surface level juice. Anyway, I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers.